Hi, my name is Ken Asselson. I wrote the microbiome prescription website. And today I want to go through small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, better known as SIBO, and particularly in the concept of when treatment for SIBO fails. In order to understand why it fails and what you can do if it fails when your medical professional tried something on you. And the key word is they tried something. If you understand what's going on, there's a better chance you will make a better next decision on how to go about treating it. So, SIBO, basically I'm going to cover a couple of things. First of all, how SIBO is determined, symptoms, then to the breath test, which is often what people already have, then the small intestinal aspirate, and then the microbiome microbiome sample. The latter one is a different color because it is not a conventional way of approaching SIBO, but as you can see from later in this presentation, it is a reasonable logical way and may actually be far better than the breath test or symptoms. So, symptoms, basically we have a variety of symptoms. The SIBO first got mentioned in the literature about late 1960s, early 1970, and it was a name given to a set of symptoms seen. There was and there is no definitive SIBO test. Basically, like for example, chronic fatigue syndrome or post-viral infection syndrome or post-Lyme syndrome. It is in many ways a syndrome, which is a fancy way of saying somebody has this bunch of symptoms and we're giving it this name so we can somehow describe it so that we can know how to bill for it for insurance purposes in terms of explaining why you came into the doctor's office. It was because you're having problems with SIBO. Gives a name to things. Doesn't mean that the name gives a solution. It doesn't. So what we have is SIBO came in the 60s and 70s and started being recognized as a collection of symbols. And then a bit later, they found that this set of symptoms matched up with the result of breath tests. And what happened is people started using breath tests as a diagnostic there. Here is you can find this on PubMed or elsewhere. Basically, it's a good summary of the history of it. Now, when we come over to the breath tests, we find a couple of interesting. First, it's a very cheap test, originated in 1970, so it's very much old technology. It's easy to interpret and generally measure one or more of three main substances. There are other substances can be made: hydrogen level, methane level, hydrogen sulfide. All three levels are sensitive to which sugars are being used, testing methodology, etc. So you have a lack of consensus among the professional as to how to do it and what the significant numbers are. But because of the association, many practitioners have accepted it because it gives something concrete, something which you can fill in on the insurance claim paper as to what's going on. Now we go on and take a look at an important aspect. A breath test doesn't say which bacteria are involved. For example, there is a very rare breath test, which is a police officer pulls over somebody, smells their breath, and says, "Oh, you've been drinking." Well, that person has not been drinking. He happens to have the wrong set of bacteria in him, and it's producing alcohol from that bacteria. It's a form of SIBO, excessive production of alcohol. That isn't one of the regular tests, but it is known to occur, and is documented in many cases, where it's a different bacteria which is overgrown. Key thing is the bacterium that produces the above gases cannot be identified by breath. There are literally thousands and thousands of possible bacteria, and we'll show you what the counts are. And the counts are high, and the question is, okay, which one of these bacteria is causing the high thing? And when you go over to treating it, like for example with antibiotics, will this antibiotic be effective for the bacteria that are producing it? And that is part of the challenge of treating SIBO. When we look at what bacteria produces, that looking at the strain level, we find what you would find there. We find 5,000 different bacteria species could be producing it. That's species that are known to produce those gases. They are producers of those gases, according to the Keto Encyclopedia of Gene Genomics. So you are going to try treating something which could be any one or any combination of 5,000 different bacteria and hoping you get lucky. That's the reality of how most MD treat. They're just hoping they will get lucky. Treatment based on what works for some people. Some cases it works well, some cases not. One antibiotic with myosin has a reasonably high rate, something like 78%, has success. By success, it means that the symptoms are, keyword, improve. You're not talking about full remission. You're talking about improvement. It's a criteria which they're reporting on in their clinical trial. Other things, another combination which involves 3 different antibiotics being taken consistently over 3 months, ends up with something like 56% improvement, which means 44% of people won't improve. In fact, from taking those antibiotics for so long, they may have a worse condition. They may have adverse situation. Bottom line is there is no objective determination of which bacteria, which treatment should be used in terms of what it is. Now, when we go over to the small intestinal aspirate, the gold standard according to Mayo Labs and others is basically it's a physical sampling of the small intestine. So getting there is a bit of fun, several ways of doing it. The bacteria is obtained. Some cases, the only thing they do is count the bacterial density to confirm you have SIBO or overgrowth. No testing is done as to which bacteria are causing it or the relative percentages. One of the reasons is that they don't have really the data, which has to be done on a lab-by-lab basis because differences of lab, as to what a healthy aspirate would be like. Because you have to go and find, well, technically you could get away with 30 people, but probably closer to 1,000 different people who are healthy people who consent to get the aspirate done in just one clinical lab for them to get a reference level. Try getting 1,000 people, that's a good expense, and number of aspirates being done won't do a payback. So the result is, okay, we give a count, that's sufficient. We don't know which bacteria are involved, problem, because we don't know what is going to work or what is not. Bacteria could be cultured, which is an old school way. It only reports on the culturable bacteria, and many of the bacteria which we know can be produced, hydrogen sulfide, methane, etc., are not culturable, which means you may find nothing which appears wrong, but you actually have a problem. So best results would actually be taking your sample, put it through shotgun sequencing, which is expensive. This whole thing becomes very expensive, not what an insurance company is likely to pick up, which means you are looking at thousands of dollars to get the testing done. And you may or may not have useful information because you need the reference. If you don't have the reference, the information is, you have so many, you have so much. Okay, is that normal? Is that abnormal? Is that an overgrowth or is that normal growth? We don't have that. What we end up going to as the last thing is we looking at, give me 1 second. What I proposed is we look at the stool microbiome sample, and the logic is straightforward and simple. First of all, it's downstream, so what is in it is being fed by the small intestine. Whatever comes out there has gone through the small intestine. Now, the numbers and ratios may be skewed because it goes through different environments, some of which would be hostile. But we know there's a good chance that a significant amount of the bacteria in the small intestine and the upper bowel will simply flow through, right? With the rest of your fuel. It'll just flow through, which means it gives us some insight into it. We can at least identify whether or not there's any evidence of certain bacteria being there. Usually it's not cultured. Some labs still do culture or other ways, but generally 16S shotgun is used, so you get a much deeper analysis. Maybe 3,000 different bacteria strains are identified, much greater wealth of studies because of the cheapness of 16S, it is the standard for doing studies. It's cheap, so use it. Save money. You have a research budget. You don't want the Cadillacs. You want a cheap secondhand car, and 16S is just that. So we end up being there. So now let's go over and see how we actually can use microbiome prescription to help you. Okay, so go to the site. First thing I want to do is just do something quick, which is I'm going to shove things up to the advanced level, which cause the KIG derived data to show up, so you can go and take a look at things, and one of which is a compound by producers and consumers. If you click here, you'll go and see all the compounds which are being produced by the bacteria. How many are being produced? We have 3,100 different bacteria compounds being produced. In other words, there's a lot of compounds there. And if I type in H2S, we see hydrogen sulfide. And what do we see? We see 3,800 producers of it. We have 4,000 consumers of it. Of course, if you have a surplus of hydrogen sulfide, it generally means that the total production is more than the consumption, and hence you have a surplus of it. Same thing you can do for other things. For example, you can type in methane, and there we have CH4. We only have 622, and we can go in and type in H2 for hydrogen, and right there we have 595 there. So we have all the information sitting there, nice and easy. The source of this is always from the Kyoto Encyclopedia GN Genomics. You can go over there and verify the data yourself. So that gives you a complete breakdown as to what is the potential things involved. However, if you go over to research features here, and give me 1 second, something went wrong there. That should have there. Oops, wrong one. There, sorry, wrong one. There you'll come and you'll find enzyme percentile, compound produced, compound consumed. We are looking at SIBO, so we're only looking at surplus production. So I simply can go down here and say compound produce. And now I can go and type in H2S. And there he is. He's at the 49th percentile. In other words, half the people have more, half the people have less. And actually, 50 percentile is probably strongly suspicious of SIBO issue. Simply because the incidence of SIBO, by some studies, is much higher than people suspect. So we have that. We have their estimated count, 2164. So you can see there he is 4 times the bottom range, but not the upper range. So he's well in there. And we click here, and voila, we go over and we see all the bacteria he has which produces hydrogen sulfide. How many are there? 54. Well, what we could do is go and I've ranked things by some called importance, which are the ones which seem to produce the biggest amount, which is a combination of the percentages. And there, so I will go down and I will mark everything which are higher, which are significantly on the high side, which are the likely overproducers. So I'm looking here at percentile, which means you're producing much more than typical, and 88 there. And another one down here, we had 100. And I can do more. I check them there because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a hand-picked suggestion right here. And they're now added in there, so now I can get suggestions for that one. Now, if I wanted to, I can, of course, go back and under research features, same spot. look up methane, and there we are, 92 percentile, definitely high. Here we have the counts. Normal range is from 850 to 9800, so well above the low level, not a high level. It's some of the bacteria are can be pretty dramatic for the rate of change. And there we have it, and we have only 8 bacteria involved. And let's do it. Now what we find is there's only one bacteria which is really standing up, which here everything else is normal range. We have another one down here which is there. Now you can have situations where all of these are apparently normal. In that case, the cost is often the number of them that are normal is more than most people have. Hence, the total output is more. In other words, you don't have a high horsepower engine. You have a whole bunch of lawnmowers producing electricity instead of a big diesel engine. You can get more power out of them if you get enough small lawnmower engines. So again, we add that in, and we can go back and do one last time, which is to look up the last one in the series, which is plain old hydrogen gas, H2. And we have hydrogen here, and we're 67th percentile, and we can again go over here. And we only have 7 items here. Again, we can go and sort by importance. And do you know, all 3 of them, I see the same bacteria showing up as one, the top one, and then we have another one which I think we already have. Another one, all 3 of these are seeing in the other sample. So we can go in there and I'll just add those 2. And now we have our hand-picked bacteria. In other words, what I'm doing now is concentrating on SIBO and SIBO alone, not any other conditions, not whether or not you're suffering from POTS or IBS or anything else. We're just focusing on SIBO. And often it's best to focus on one thing because every set of conditions have different bacteria, and if you have trying to do too many things, you may end up with a bad compromise. No self-suggestion serves 2 conditions, no man serves 2 masters. Same concept. So all I have to do now is click here, get suggestions, and now we can go down here and go for antibiotics, and we can actually do the whole kit and caboodle if we feel like it. And we use high and low level, actually restrict to high levels, which probably doesn't make much difference. So I'm just sort of tossing the kitchen sink at the issue. And now we get a suggestion. Hey, wait a minute, number 1 here happens to be a antibiotic which is used for SIBO. Imagine that. It magically picked one of them out. Amoxicillin is another one used for SIBO. So SIBO is there. With mycin, I don't see that list there. Now we can go in and do more details. We can go over to consensus and look for things individually. But the thing, let's go over to consensus for like anything else, which is going back to changing microbiome. And I think here, yes, there it is. And now we can go in and check everything. One of the bacterial probiotics which is used for SIBO is with niacin. And we see that it is on the recommended to-do list. It's not real high up there, and so it's not ideal. If you go over to antibiotics, you can see it's very well down there, and we have one which is near the top of the list. Now we also have, if you want to be more sophisticated, is we can go over to the food planner, which is a new feature. And there we have the food planner. Here is a video showing how to make use of it. And we have 136 nutrients we have identified, and we go down there, and the first thing is thiamine. Thiamine is available as a supplement, which means that is what I would suggest you do. Number 2 is hesperidin. Let's click here, and we now see what is richer. We have blonde orange, and we have lime, and we have lemon. So those are things you probably may want to do. And suppose you decide, yeah, I'm actually not going to do things in grams. This person is American, so I'm going to go over to configuration. I'm going to change it to ounces. Now I'm going to click back here and look at the identifier again. And we'll go here, and now we see that. And what I'm going to do is going to have 4 ounces for breakfast each day of lime. Actually, now probably have that more for afternoon tea. Have a lime there, 4 ounces. I could have grapefruit. I'll have 6 ounces of grapefruit for breakfast. So I have picked food to match the nutrient pattern which we are looking for. We can go back here. Resveratrol, again, is available as a supplement. We can go over and just do it by other things. For example, by grapes, we could have 4 ounces of grapes if you don't want to use it as a supplement, and we could have that for lunch in there. And let's go back to the nutrient list, and actually let's go back here. This is a bit easier to work with. Vitamin B12, again, available as supplement. Caffeine, you can add in coffee. Let's see what coffee. Actually, tea is much better. So you could start with a 6-ounce cup of tea for breakfast. For afternoon tea, add in 6 ounces more. We have lemon already, which is sweet. We are getting some caffeine from lemon. I never knew lemon had caffeine. Grapefruit, we're also getting caffeine there. So there's a double blessing from that particular food. And we can go down and we can continue there, and we can go there. Oh, we have lemon there. So we are getting lemon there. We have peppermint, etc. So that's good. We're already taking some of the right stuff in terms of things which nutrient. Vitamin C, getting lemon, biotin there. Niacin. Now we can also click on here to see things that should be avoided. Inulin is to be avoided. And we also have something like that. What in the world has that? And vinegar. It's a vinegar. So no vinegar on your salad. Best suggestion: no fish and chips with vinegar. That's probably what you should be doing. Let's go back and see what else we have for negatives. Whatever that one is. Again, peanuts. A small amount, but you may want to make sure you avoid peanuts in your diet. And what else do we have on the negative? What in the world is that one? Walnuts. Oh, you should walnut liqueur. Probably walnuts too. So we have peanuts and walnuts. You should exclude from the diet if you are having it. If not, okay. That's it. We can now look at what your current menu plan is, and we can now click on nutrients, see what is being produced. Click here to see what the priority is. Everything there. A bunch of stuff we are getting there we don't already have. We have the daily recommended intake sitting here, and we see we are well above the recommended there. We have things there, and if you double click it, we see nope, we have nothing which is bad in the list. So we are in a good diet. So I'm going to shut up with that, and notice that we have the option of doing download for Excel, or we can go back here and we can download for Excel here and just open it. And there we have menu, how many ounces, etc. So everything is there ready for you on day 0, and you can do more. So that it was just a quick demo of how to use the food thing. And you can go in and toss in what you are regularly eating. For example, suppose you go back to foods, and what you want to do is have some oats. And toasted oats right there. Okay, that's supposed you want 4 ounces of oats every day. And you want to have pizza for supper. Okay, and we have 8 ounces of pizza. And we want to have a burger for lunch. Okay, and we'll go for there, and just probably about 6 ounces, we add that. So we can go in and add in the food you regularly eat. Now we go over the food plans. You see the items there, but now when we go over the plant's nutrients, you can see how well you're doing. Everything there is a plus, and there are no negatives. If there are negatives, you can go and find out what food is bringing a negative and get rid of it. For example, if in your food you put in artichoke, there, and you put in 3 ounces of artichoke, and we go over to there, we look at nutrients and click here, and artichoke doesn't show up inulin. Okay, need to double check that, but basically that's a process. Okay, I'll shut up and let you get to experimenting. To quickly summarize again, you go in and you can use the research features, compounds produced, and see how much is being produced. You can also look at compound consumed if you want to get more convoluted or complicated, but generally compound produced is probably sufficient to look at for SIBO. And there, and we have also the short form here where you can take a look at the over and underscores, but here we are wanting specifically the bacteria associated with SIBO. We want to reduce them.